composting is really just another word for recycling, but in this case you're recycling organic materials like food and lawn wastes. And when you compost, you're really turning garbage into soil. And so that you're using, just like nature does, you're taking the organic materials and having them break down and decompose into humus. And it's a wonderful soil amendment, so things that you can stick onto your garden, and it will release nutrients to your garden and help it to grow. It is very rich in nutrients because it does have all of that organic material that's breaking down, releasing nitrogen and phosphorus into your soil. It also helps your soil to retain moisture because it's so high in organic matter, and it provides a wonderful environment for microbes to grow, and it helps to suppress plant diseases because it maintains a healthy balance of living organisms in the soil. Because you're adding all of those nutrients with the compost, you can use that instead of chemical fertilizers. And then because you're not throwing your food waste into a landfill, you're reducing your carbon footprint, because in a landfill it would be breaking down slowly and releasing methane, which is a greenhouse gas. In 2015, in the United States alone, we threw away 37.6 million tons of food waste, and 94% of this ended up in landfills or combustion facilities. And so we either put them in the ground and burned them, or let them sit there for forever, for a long time, or we burned them up. But it's more efficient if we could put them into compost heap and let them break down and use them in the soil. There's 3 necessary ingredients of compost. So there's the green material. This is basically all that food, the wet food material that you're going to throw into there. It includes veggies and fruits, grass clippings, coffee grounds, and tea bags. So you don't want to put the top of the tea bag that is a staple in there, but you can put the bag and the tea into there, and the coffee grounds and the what is that called? The coffee filter. Sorry, I don't drink coffee. I'm a tea person. So you put all of that into your compost heap, and this is what's rich. That's the stuff that's really rich in the organic matter, and it will decompose fairly quickly, and it provides the moisture. You also need to add browns. Browns are basically detritus, like dead leaves and twigs from trees. This dry material, it provides structure to the compost and helps it to be aerated because it's having structure that lets the air through the compost pile. And then finally, water is critical because microorganisms that are decomposing the waste and worms, if you're lucky enough to have a good worm population in there, they need water in order to decompose the organic materials, and so you need to make sure you're getting enough water in there. And the EPA has a lovely website that talks about compost, and that was at the first slide, it had that EPA website, and it talks about these 3 but doesn't talk about air. And just to remind you, you do need to aerate your compost heap, because without air you can't decompose your waste aerobically, and so it will decompose much slower. So air is important too. But in the desert, so where I live in Arizona, the big challenge is keeping it wet enough that it can decompose. So otherwise you go out to your compost pile and you just have this big dry heap of waste in your yard, which just attracts roaches, so you don't want to do that. Okay, so what can you put in your compost? You could put egg and nutshells, newspaper, cardboard and paper, sawdust and wood chips. If you have cotton and wool rags, you don't want to put any nylon or synthetic things, but if you have 100% cotton or wool, that can go in there. Pet hair can go in there, or even if you cut your hair can go in there. Dryer and vacuum cleaner lint can go in there, and then hay and straw if you happen to have that. This is a picture of my dogs who tend to shed a lot, so lots of hair that could potentially go into the compost. And then, of course, this is in addition to the greens and the browns that we talked about on the last slide. So what should you not put in your compost? First of all, you should never put animal waste, especially from animals that eat meat. So if they're omnivores or carnivores, don't put it in there. It might contain parasites, bacteria, germs, pathogens, and viruses that are harmful to humans. So then if you put that compost onto your garden, you're going to transmit that back to you. So don't do that. You also don't want to put any animal products, so dairies, fats and oils, meat and fish bones and scraps. All of those are going to smell really bad and they're going to attract pests. So that shouldn't go in there either. If you have yard trimmings that you've applied pesticides to them, so an example would be weeds in your yard. If you spray your weeds with pesticide, then you don't want to put those into your compost, because those chemicals will stay in the compost bin and they can kill the organisms that are in there that are supposed to be decomposing your waste products. And then finally, if you have diseased plants or plants that have been infected with insects, don't put that in your compost, because it could transfer disease to your healthy plants when you add that composted soil to the plants. So if you want to try composting, first of course check with your city. So some municipalities have a composting program already, and they have special bins that they will give you to come collect your compostable waste. Like in the city of Phoenix, it's right now a pilot program, and so some houses have access to that and some don't. Some municipalities also will provide you with low-cost composting bins, and then of course you can buy them online, you can buy them at the store. But in the city of Phoenix, what they do is they take old garbage bins, they drill holes in them, and they'll sell it to you for $5. So you can see in this one has some holes for aeration, but I think in Phoenix they just drill holes in them literally and then give them back to you, and then you have a cheap compost bin that you can use in your yard.